There.
Hi.
Everyone.
Hi.
I just was having some sign-in issues, so sorry for getting on a little bit late. The password was I had the wrong password. So we'll just hang out here for a minute until it seems like the majority of people are on, and I'm gonna get my PowerPoint up. Nice.
Okay.
I'll probably have to ask again, but is it okay for me to record this tutor talk so that other people can view it? Does anyone, want to keep their video off or something? If you're not comfortable with it being recorded, you could just let me know, or you could send me a message in the chat too.
No problem.
Okay.
I'm fine.
Okay. Yeah. If anyone, hopefully we can record it. I think there were a couple of people who wanted to come but couldn't make it. So, if you don't want to be recorded, you could just maybe turn off your video. I hope that'll be okay for everyone. Let me see here. Okay. Let me get my PowerPoint going. All right. All right. So let's see who we have here. Some familiar faces, some new faces for me, but probably you're just in other coordinators areas. So I'm Trisha Bandremer. I'm the current kind of feedback there. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. I'm the current North Hills program coordinator, and today's session is about teaching vocabulary. This should apply to any students more or less. We'll try to talk a little bit about different levels, and I don't know that we'll talk explicitly about difference between ABE and ESL, but just levels I think should mostly work. Yeah. So as we are waiting to see if anyone else comes on, I will get started with the recording and also move to my next slide, which is just wanting to know what brings everyone here today. Actually, hearing some feedback. I'm not sure what that's from. I am going to move out of presentation mode so that I can type into this. I'm just curious what brought people here today, what you would like to get from this session. So if anyone wants to share, just shout anything out. I can type it into the list.
Yeah, I have an advanced student from South Korea, and I would say somewhat of a beginner. So I just want to make sure that my expectations are not too high on the beginner and not too low on the advanced. It's a tough one, but anything would help.
Okay, great.
And I'm just looking for creative ways to teach vocabulary.
Okay. Great.
I have a student who's going to be taking the Air Force exam to enter the military. And I would, the thing he's having the most difficulty with is word knowledge on this practice test he's been working through this book.
All right. Great. Yeah, anyone else?
Yeah, I've been teaching more grammar and just kind of noticing words that maybe would be unfamiliar, but I haven't really taught vocabulary per se. So I'm just curious about any tips you can give me.
Okay. So sort of when new words come up in your material that you're using, you want to know sort of what to do with that.
Yeah, and maybe when to recognize that words might be new to someone.
Okay. Anyone else?
I guess I'm looking for guidelines on how many new words can be introduced within a certain period of time, and some maybe fun ways of reinforcing the words and some activities to do that would help them to stick.
Okay. All right. Yeah, anyone else? You can just shout anything out if you want. I just want to make sure that we're, that we're covering what you're interested in. So
I'd like to hear a little bit about integrating vocabulary words in all parts of the lesson. So if you're introducing vocabulary words, incorporate that in a reading, in a dialogue, how to keep putting that forward throughout the whole lesson.
So yeah, these are all really great questions and things that we can focus on. Anyone else?
I just got on. This is Tim Hallahan. I just was connected. Just got connected.
Okay.
Oh, well.
I think Tim, is it possible you're on the Zoom meeting, maybe you have 2 devices?
No, I'm on just one device.
That's really, okay, I'm not sure what's going on there. What is happening? What's going on there? Okay. All right. Yeah, so someone noted if everyone mutes, we can probably solve that. If anyone is on this meeting on 2 devices, that tends to be when this type of thing happens. If you have it open on your phone and on your computer, it makes some feedback noises. But, let me see here. Just give me 1 second here. Okay. All right. So I think we're okay for now. Anything else? I heard a couple people starting to talk. Tim, sorry. Do you want to tell me again what you said you just got connected with your student? Okay, let me see. Just 1 second here. Sorry, guys. Just trying to figure out. Okay. All right. I think we're good now. I think we're good. So Tim, we can try one more time. Sorry. Do you want to share? I'm not hearing anything.
Yeah, Tim's on mute again.
Okay. Oh, Tim,
Okay.
you're muted.
Now. Okay, the last thing I heard before I was disconnected was someone asked if there's a problem with sharing or recording. That's when it kicked out on me earlier in the meeting
okay.
around 2 o'clock when we first started.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I was just saying that we would try to record the meeting. And if anyone did not want to be recorded, you could just maybe turn off your video, if that's okay. That was what I was saying about that. Okay, well, just so we can add things on later, but just so we can get going, I'll just move on. So these are all really great points, things to consider, beginners versus advanced, ways to make the vocabulary stick, and be weaved into all parts of the lesson. And also, how do you know what words are new words for your student? So a lot of good things here. And some of these I think are already covered in what I'm planning to talk about, but I'll try to circle back to this and make sure we talk about anything that we didn't. I want to say before we get into this too much, there's a lot of information here, and it's being recorded, so you can always go back and check something out later. There are some things I'm going to share with you outside of the PowerPoint today that I am happy to send to anyone on this meeting, and at some point I'm going to try to take down who everyone is on the meeting so that I can send it out to everyone if you would like. There are just some additional documents that are not part of the PowerPoint. So, feel free to ask questions. Don't feel like you have to get, all of this at once, especially when we look at some websites that you can use, because you might think, well, okay, how do I do this? How do I create this thing on the website? And that's a whole other can of worms, which we could potentially do in a second tutor talk. But for today, I just want to show you some resources. You can try to play around with them. And, if there's a need and an interest in exploring more about how to use some of these websites and apps and things like that, we can do that. Okay, so first of all, where should the vocabulary come from that you're working on with your student? So there are many answers to this. One can be your student's textbook, whatever textbooks, if you're using a textbook. There are usually vocabulary words that are introduced in every chapter or every unit. And they usually have a lot of ways to interact with the vocabulary within the textbook, but that can also get a little bit dry. So sometimes you want to, move away from that and do your own thing with the vocabulary. The words that are new for your student could also come from websites that you might be using. There's one called Randall's Cyber Listening Lab that has a lot of audio dialogues about just daily life situations like calling to make a reservation for something. And there are going to be new vocabulary words in something like that. Also, it could just be a topic that your student approaches you about. They want to learn about this. They want to, I'm just checking in the chat. Okay. Yes, John, yeah, I can send you the information about the meeting if you have to leave early, no problem. So yeah, and then realia is another thing. So just real things that, real things that your student has on hand and has questions about. They might have, their child's homework. They might have something from the doctor that they don't understand. They might have something from their workplace. Maybe they see some signs at their workplace and they don't really understand what those signs mean. And they take pictures of it and show you, what is this? This seems important, but I don't know what it means. So anything like that, there might be forms that they have to fill out, whatever the case may be. And that's going to be very relevant for them if it's, they're bringing it to you. It can be whatever your student wants within reason. If your student is a beginner and they show you something that is way beyond their ability to understand in English, you know, you might be able to deal with it in some small way, but if it's just like this long form they have to fill out, maybe there's a way that we can, as an agency, help them with that, but it might not be appropriate for their lesson depending on their level. But, you know, within reason, whatever your student or students want can be, you know, can be used. I also put some book series that are really helpful and can really be used for any adults. I don't think it has to be specific to ESL. These books are made as graded readers for adult English language learners. I think you could also use them for adult basic ed students as long as the level is appropriate. So they are leveled. Pearson has a series of books like this, and Oxford has a series. They are more British English, but I've used some from time to time, and they're really nice. They're short stories, they're adapted versions. So like you see the Little Women there, obviously it's not the original form, it's something adapted. It might be like 40 pages or something, and much simpler vocabulary. They organize these types of books based on the level of vocabulary. So you can't necessarily find Little Women in all levels. You can just look at the level that's appropriate and see what titles are available. These are really nice. You know, I think in the past we've given books out like this on loan to students and tutors. I think they're really great. There are also some, you know, that are just like $5 or $6, you know, not really a big thing, but, you know, we want to be able to help you guys if there are materials like this that you would like to use. I will show you really quickly here, just so you have an idea. On the websites for these books, let me see. Let me share my screen again with you. So if you're curious to look at titles of these types of books, this link, this isn't really where you would order them because it seems to be a community college page, but it shows you many different titles in the different levels of these books. Also, if you find something like this and then you go onto Amazon, you might get one of those options where you can look inside the book. Not for everything, but for many, you can look inside the book and get a sense of the level of it. So you can see these are, you know, these are adult topics. They're not children's books, but they're just simplified, adapted readers. So these are really nice. I also have the Oxford Bookworms website here. We can see 6 different levels. I'll just check out what's on level 2 here, and then we can move back to the PowerPoint. If it refreshes, let's see, it's taking a long time, so maybe I'll just skip that. But I'll send these links out, and you can, you know, you can take a look, see if you see something of interest for your student. So we have some Agatha Christie here and Alice in Wonderland. So a lot of times they're classic novels that are adapted, or they might be like biographies about certain people. They might be something that was a movie that's very well known. Like I remember there being one on The Talented Mr. Ripley, which was a movie, or one on, let me think, what else I've seen. I don't know, I can't think of it right now, but just wanted to share some of those resources with you. Now we'll go back to the PowerPoint. Okay. All right. So one question that someone asked, how do I know which words are new words for my student? So a couple of things on that. When you have your student read or listen to something, you can ask them to indicate words that they didn't understand. This might be something before your class where you say, hey, I'd like you to read this paragraph or this one-page article or whatever seems appropriate. I'd like you to read it before class and make a list of the words you didn't know, right? Or if it's something they have a paper copy of, or when we get back into real face-to-face class again, they can circle or they can highlight words that they didn't know. That's very useful information for you because my second point on this page is you can really figure out if the text is just too hard for them before you move on. And that is super important. We try to, put together textbooks and learning plans for students that are going to be at the appropriate level. But many tutors, as they should, look for other materials too. And you have to get a sense of, is this going to be way too hard for my student? Is this an appropriate challenge? Is this so easy that there won't be any new words for them, which is not necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes it's good to just have students read and feel confident that they can go through it and they understand what it's all about. But generally, you want there to be some words that are new. And also, as you get to know your students, you'll be able to sense when something is too hard for them. If you're just starting out, you might feel like, okay, I have no idea. And you have to see with the textbooks that you get, go through a reading with them, have them read it out loud, see which words they get stuck on, even just to pronounce. And then we're going to look at some other things that you can do to see if they're understanding and to help reinforce the vocabulary. Okay. So then another question that came up from one of you was, how much vocabulary is appropriate to work on for one class? So it can vary by level. It can also it can vary by, educational background of your student. If you're working with a student who has a college education from their home country and, has a PhD or a master's degree or something and has a pretty high level of English, they're going to be able to handle some more words than someone who maybe has not graduated from high school in their home country or, just generally struggles with reading. Is, their first language, does their first language use the alphabet or does it use Chinese characters? Does it use something else where if they're a beginner and they're reading, there's going to be a lot less familiar to them just reading things with the alphabet. If they're new, if they're a newer student, if they're a beginner student. So it can vary. Also, some of you may have students who just ask you about so many words. And that's great. It's great that they're interested. I think you still have to limit what you really focus on for vocabulary because they just can't process all of it. If they're asking you about, 20 different words a lesson and you're telling them and then moving on, it's probably not going to stick with them. So it's important for you and the student to kind of decide, okay, what are the words here that I really want to learn and focus on? Some things maybe are not for every day. Maybe it's just something they saw on a billboard somewhere and it's not really important. So you have to kind of limit it and focus in and give repeated practice with the words. We'll look at how, we're going to look at that. But yeah, some students will really ask you like 100 words, a day that they want to know. And that is awesome that they're so motivated. But if someone told you 100 words in Japanese today, would you remember even 5 of them tomorrow? Probably not. So we just have to put ourselves in the student's shoes to think, okay, how do they seem to be doing with this? Are they understanding? Are they answering questions? Does it seem like they really maybe don't understand this? Maybe it's too hard. And finding out how many words they don't know, even just within a paragraph. If you're going to read a book with them, like one of the books that we looked at on the other page. So something in the chat here. Okay. Oh, I see a couple questions here in the chat. So should we suggest they look up the words as they read? And that's from Michelle. I would say if they're reading outside of class and that, you know, they have more time, it's not like this is our hour for class time. I don't know if you'd want them to be looking up words while they're reading something during the class time. If they have time, I mean, they could do it a little bit, but you don't want to take up all the class time with that. But just identifying words that they're not sure about or phrases, they could look them up later, or you could say, let's choose 3 of these words to look up later and practice more with those words. They can take part in deciding, what those words should be, but you can also help, like, well, this is actually a brand name. It's not really a vocabulary word. I know you haven't heard of it before, but it's not really that important. So, you can kind of help. I remember, one of the articles I'm going to show you in a little bit, students would be thrown off by the name of a newspaper. It was a newspaper article, and it said something about, or it was an online article that talked about a newspaper, and they were like, what is that? What is that? It's just the name of the newspaper. It's not really something we're going to ever talk about again. So you can help as the instructor to kind of filter out things that are like, okay, it's not really that important, but let's see which words are words you're likely to need and use on a daily basis. Okay, and I see another comment in here about a student who wants to help her child with homework and be able to talk with their teachers. So yeah, and there's a specific vocabulary to that. So we can talk a little bit about the context, teaching the vocabulary in a context. We're gonna talk about that soon, next actually. Does anybody have a question at the moment before we go on? Anything? Okay. All right. Well, just let me know. Okay. Just making sure also everyone can hear me out there, right? Just if you nod your head. Okay. Just making sure. We all muted, which is helpful, I think, but then I feel like I'm talking to myself. So just making sure. Okay. All right. So, some best practices for working on vocabulary. This bullet point list, the following slides are going to go into more detail about each of these. So if this seems like an overwhelming list, don't worry, because we're going to go into it more. So pre-teaching vocabulary before your lesson can be really helpful. That means you have to have some sense of what words are going to be new. So that might be hard to do if you're newly matched with a student. If you're just meeting them for the first time, you're not going to know, but your coordinator can help you to pick out something that might be good to either listen to or read in your first or second meeting, and then get a sense of, okay, how many words in this are hard for them. And you can do this with things like dialogues. The cyber listening lab that I mentioned before, it has these audio dialogues, but it also has a transcript for every one of them, so they can be read as well as listened to. So we can, I'll make sure you guys have that link for that website. So pre-teaching, and we're going to look at what that means. That can be really helpful. Reviewing vocabulary during the lesson. So if you're reading something, if you're listening to something, take some pauses and check for comprehension. Hey, we just read this, 5 lines. Were there any words in there that you didn't remember, you didn't understand? And and check their understanding in a low stakes way. And I think this is a very important point, because when we do things like, well, what do you think this word means? Sometimes students are just like, whoa, like, I don't know, and they don't feel very confident. It can be easier for them if you give them choices. Do you think this word is this, or do you think it is this? You know, we'll look at some examples of that, but lower stakes, they're going to be more comfortable to try to answer. If you give them some choices, they can choose one. That's much easier than, you know, if we're just putting them on the spot. Well, what do you think that word means? I don't know. And then they just stare at you. So checking general comprehension of the story or dialogue, whatever you're doing, you know, you want to check that at a few points, because vocabulary is part of whether they're understanding the story or not. Sometimes sentence structure can throw students off too. If it's a really complex sentence structure, they don't really see what's happening in the sentence, but often words, you know, just individual words or phrases can affect whether they really know what's going on, and how many of them are new can affect it. And then post-reading vocabulary work. So you're going to do something with those words after you've done the reading. You might get something a little bit deeper with the words. And the other point is you don't want these readings or dialogues to be standalone. We did it on Wednesday and we're never going to talk about it again. You want it to be something where you're doing more work with the story. Even if it's just 20 minutes in your next lesson, you talk about, what was the story we read last time? Let's review 5 words from that story. Even if it's something like that, that just takes, you know, maybe 20 minutes or 15 minutes, whatever you feel you have time for. But always try to bring those words back in. I'll tell you a little bit more about so I used to teach at a place in the community college in the Bronx, and we were with the students in our classes for 5 hours a day, 5 days a week. So it was a lot of time with the same students. And I would always bring back old vocabulary, and they would be like, oh, teacher, do we have to? They just were like, we talked about that word. We talked about it. Yeah, but we talked about it like 4 months ago. And then when we really practiced, did they remember all of the words? Nope. So, you know, they kind of hate you for that, but it's necessary, really, because that might be the only exposure they're getting to these words, right? Is you're practicing those words with them. That might be it. They might not be doing anything or hearing those words or reading them anywhere else. So we just want to keep that in mind. Hopefully they are, but our students are busy, so they don't always have a lot of time to do that. So that kind of relates to my last point, talking about cumulative vocabulary reviews. So just to move on here, and please stop me at any point if you have questions. I don't see anything coming up in the chat yet. So with pre-teaching vocabulary, for lower levels, this can involve photos and words. The little picture that you probably can't see super well here is from a picture dictionary, and it has little images of cleaning products like a garbage can or recycling can, a vacuum cleaner. And later on the page, it shows the words, you know, number 17 is vacuum cleaner, number 18 is mop or whatever. So just to show you, you know, you can do a lot with words and photos to pre-teach the vocabulary before you ever get into a story, a dialogue, anything, okay? And when I say before it, I mean, you might not even look at the story until the next week, especially with beginners. You might say, okay, we're gonna do this now. We're gonna build in some of this vocabulary for the story this week so that next week it won't be totally overwhelming for them. And for this kind of stuff, you do have to search around on Google, you know, look for pictures and things like that, you know, but it really helps to prepare them for what they're going to read. So we're going to look at a few examples, but yeah, photos and words, you can give them example sentences and, you know, maybe a photo to kind of open up the discussion about what that word means. You can show a scene, a photo of a scene, like here's a grocery store, right? Ask them to tell you what they see. This lets you know what words they can say without really, again, like putting them on the spot. Like, oh, what's that? What's that? That's going to be hard for them. But if you just say, tell me about this picture, what do you see? So let's take a look at some of that. This is an example here. So for a lower level student, maybe we're talking about the grocery store and we're going to listen to a story or read a story about it. And we have the word aisle, which is a very crazy spelling. And so I might show them this picture and I have the word aisle and I could say, this is aisle 2 in the grocery store. I might also, I'm on PowerPoint and I can use my laser pointer so I can say, okay, yeah, this is aisle 2. We can walk in aisle 2. This is the aisle. Over here is aisle 1. We can't see the aisle, but it's over there. And aisle 3, this is aisle 2, right? We can walk in this aisle to look for some food. So you have the photo. If you're online, you can use PowerPoint or anything to do annotation to circle what you're talking about. So that's one example. You're maybe giving them more of a context. She can look in aisle 2 for peanut butter, right? I can see that right here in the sign that peanut butter is in aisle 2. Maybe you ask the student, oh, what else can she find in aisle 2, right? Can she find salad dressing? Yes, she can. So, you know, you can do what you want with something like that. But the idea is we are not doing the story yet, but the word aisle is going to come up in the story. And I want to make sure they know what that is. They know it when they hear it. So pre-teaching with this kind of stuff can be helpful. If we think about a higher level, maybe we're not using photos, but we have some context for them to guess the meaning of the word because there is some evidence there. There's some clues that are helping. So we have this example. This was from something I did with the immigrant workforce program in the past. We were talking about some important workforce words like timeliness. And, you know, so I might introduce these words ahead of time. Here's the key word I want them to focus on. What might timeliness mean? This could just be something you talk about with the student. They don't necessarily have to write down an answer. It's not a test, but you're just asking them, what do they think it means? And could they circle the clues? What tells you that, you know, we know it's time. We can see 5 p.m. We can see deadline. Now this is a higher level, you know, this is a higher level example, but you know, you're still giving them some context and having them do some thinking, but without putting a lot of pressure on them. They might not know. They might say, I don't know. I know it's something about time, but I don't know exactly what it means. That's okay. That's good. That's a good start. They can identify, you know, that time is part of that word. And there's clearly an emphasis on time, deadline, Friday, 5 p.m. So context is really important. Oops, I just skipped ahead a bunch. This is an example I was just talking about with showing them a scene, right? So this is a good way for, now this is more lower level, low beginner, high beginner, maybe even in the intermediate levels, perhaps. What can they tell you? What can they tell you? When we use our speaking test, we give them pictures like this in the test and we literally just say, tell me about this picture. That's all we say. And we just see, can they make sentences? Can they identify, you know, oh, credit card, debit card, computer, lettuce? Do they know individual words of things that they see there? That can tell you a lot without putting any pressure on them. And, you know, you can then use those pictures later if you studied, you know, this doesn't have a lot of food that we can really see. But, you know, if we studied lettuce, you know, we can review then with those pictures later. Oh, what does she have? She has lettuce. No, I can't really tell what else she has. This maybe wasn't the best picture, but it's just an example. So then we also talked about reviewing during the lesson. So you've already introduced the words. Now you want to make sure they're remembering. So like I was saying, you give them choices, right? So is this picture, she is paying for food or she is looking for food? Well, this seems pretty easy. They probably know the word look and they know that nobody is looking in this picture, but that's okay because you're making it a little easier for them. Later, you can make it more challenging, but right now you're just checking that they're following what's going on, and it's low stakes, right? They just have to pick A or B. Same thing here. They are in the aisle or they are in the pharmacy. Pretty obvious that they're not in the pharmacy, but it's okay, right? So it's just another way that we're exposing them to the word, getting them to practice with it. Okay, now I have a higher level example for during the lesson, but I want to pause here and see if we have any questions at all. Anybody? I'm going to stop sharing and I'll start sharing my other document, but yeah, let me know, please, any questions at all, comments. Okay. My document is being really weird right now. Okay, there it is. My computer gets tired in the afternoon, just like me. It really does. Okay, so I think, there we go. Is everyone seeing this? Couple wins 11.2 million. Okay, I see some heads nodding there. So this is a newspaper article, or I mean, it was online, sorry, AOL online article that I found years ago. It sort of doesn't matter, you know, how old it is. People play the lottery all the time. And what I've done is I've copied it into a Word document. I've numbered the lines, which can sometimes be a little bit of a pain to do, but it's not too long. I numbered the lines. And then I've also highlighted some words that I think are new for my students. So I used this in a class some years ago, and we would talk about, so basically this couple is elderly, they won the lottery, they gave most of the money away. So it prompts a lot of discussion about, you know, why would they do that? Would you do that? Is there something about them being elderly where they might be more likely to give the money away than someone who's younger? So it prompts a lot of discussion. There are some words and phrases. Okay, so hit it big. I actually didn't even realize until I was preparing for this tutor talk that I never looked at that before, which is really bad on my part. That's a really confusing phrase, hit it big. It doesn't have anything to do with hitting. So, you know, I was able to, because I had those students for a while and I knew what was going to be hard for them. I was able to sort of pre-select. Now they might find other words that they don't know, and that's fine. We can add those into the mix. But, you know, this is a reasonable amount of words to be new for the student. If this is all that's new for them, then they're going to be able to understand this and they're going to be able to work with some of the new vocabulary. On the other hand, if there are like 5 words or 6 or 7 words in every paragraph that they don't know, it's just getting a lot harder for them to really grasp what the reading is about. You know, and I mean, you have to, again, put yourself in their shoes. If you were reading something in a different language where there were like 8 words in every paragraph you didn't know, you'd probably feel like, I'm not sure I totally know what's going on here. I have a sense. The more that goes up, the harder it is for them to really have any comprehension of it. Now, what I put down below, I probably wouldn't put this on the student's document. I just put it this way because I'm showing it to you. Some during reading questions. Okay, they're not hard questions. They're definitely easier than reading the actual text, but that's that's good. I just want to see if they're following. Did the couple give money to their family? Yes or no? So I find for some reason yes and no to work better than true and false. But yeah, so I just made 5 questions. You know, they never played the lottery before, yes or no? They were surprised when they won the money, yes or no? So you can ask those questions during the reading. You know, you can say, all right, we're gonna do the first paragraph and the second paragraph, and then maybe we cover a few of these during reading questions. Now, the reason I numbered the lines is, as you can see here, for a challenge, find evidence. For your answer, provide the number or numbers. Oh, I meant numbers of, whoops, numbers of lines from where you get your evidence. So if they say, yes, the couple was surprised, it says they took a closer look. She took a closer look and was in shock. Oh my God, she said. So she said she told Ellen that day. So I would say, yeah, in lines 12 and 13, it says she was in shock. We talked about the word or the phrase in shock. That means that she was surprised. So this is actually really helpful. This finding evidence, if students that you have happen to be on the TABE test, the TABE reading test, this is something that comes up in that test a lot. So I'm just checking the chat here. Okay. So yeah, they have to, you know, with those multiple choice questions in a reading comprehension test, you have to find evidence for what do you think the main idea of this passage is? And what you're choosing, you know, you have to find some evidence. Where do you get that idea that the passage is about X? How do you know that? You have to find evidence. In the test, you don't have to find it by line numbers, but this is something that can be helpful for students when, you know, if they're like sort of lower, like intermediate, high beginner, you can do things like finding evidence, and they can understand it better, I think, when they're just numbered lines. And it's like, okay, I'm looking for a line here. I'm looking for a number. I feel like it's a little bit easier to grasp. It might not go super well the first time you try it, but it's really useful, you know, that we have to have reasons for why we give the answers that we give. Finally, on this, I also did some agree, disagree questions when I was teaching this. I find this to be really helpful. And although it's not directly about vocabulary, it helps you see if the students comprehend, or it helps the students comprehend, because you're sort of stating things and they have to agree or disagree. Playing the lottery is a waste of money. That's an idea that someone might have, right? Reading about playing the lottery. So what do they think? Do they agree or disagree? So this is not a right or wrong. It's just what is their opinion? This isn't, I mean, this was in the lesson. It's not directly related to vocabulary, but I think doing agree and disagree just enriches things more. You know, it gets them more invested in the story, talking about it more. So yeah, I just wanted to share that as a higher level example. Any questions at this point? Okay, I'm not seeing any questions. Okay, let me go to my next. So actually, some of this we sort of have already talked about, asking questions during the reading, yes and no questions. Higher than that can be the WH questions: who, where, when, why, what, how. And if you find that you're asking questions like that and they cannot answer, again, we want to look back at how much is new vocabulary for them, or how complex is the question that you're asking. We can also try to simplify our questions, and sometimes just those statements where they say yes or no can be easier to read. Questions are hard because question word order is all over the place depending on the tense. Are you, did you, when did you, why did you, where were you? There's just, it gets really confusing. Question production, I think, is really, really hard for students. So, okay, now there's a whole bunch of stuff here. Post reading, okay. Some of you were asking, how can I do something more creative with the vocabulary to engage them more with it? So I think these are some of those, these are some answers to that. Having the student come up with their own sentence, not something they copy from the dictionary, which my students used to do. And I would say, nope, you have to come up with something that's your own sentence that's related to your life, okay? Because now they can look for an example in the dictionary, sure. Hopefully they're seeing an example in class in whatever the lesson is too. And the more examples they can see of how the word is used, the better, but they need to come up with their own sentences. Maybe it's with 5 words and they make 5 individual sentences. Maybe it's with 2 words, right? So you think about what your student can handle. Categorizing is also helpful. So we had a story for students about apartment problems, and then doing some categorization of, okay, which of these vocabulary words are problems in an apartment? Which of these words are solutions or people who can solve the problem, like the plumber or the electrician? You know, categorizing, what's furniture, what's appliances? Putting them in categories also helps to solidify, you know, and make sense of all these new words. And it's in a context, right? So it's not just random words, it's related to the story and it's a theme about apartment problems. Maybe they practice a dialogue. Maybe they write their own dialogue, or if you have a group, they write a dialogue together that involves some of the new words that you discussed. The finding photos, probably something they would have to do on their own if they're willing to do that. It might be hard to do that during class time if you had more than one student. It just could take up a lot of time, but finding words that they associate with the new words can be helpful, because what you associate with it, you know, they might connect with a different picture more. If they're really visual learners. Having the student come up with definitions in their own words, I think we can only do that at a certain level. It's hard for beginners. I mean, they don't have enough vocabulary to come up with a definition in English for a word, but you know, if we're talking intermediate students and above, they have enough vocabulary that they can try to find a way to explain the word in their own words. Dialogue journals, we talk about that in the tutor talk. And I think that's another thing where you can use some of the words, you know, dear Mary, what did you do this weekend, blah, blah, blah. And you use some of the words that you've been studying with them. And maybe when you ask them a question, that forces them to have to write back and use that word again. And then another thing is just word families. I think this is also a somewhat higher level thing. But realizing, you know, okay, here's the word timeliness. What about the word timely or untimely? That's a pretty high level one, but we could, you know, we could even do just verbs and nouns, play and player, right? Work and worker, just understanding this is a verb, this is a noun, or not that you even have to call them verbs and nouns if they're beginners. You don't necessarily have to talk about, you know, parts of speech per se, but if they just understand, oh, player and worker and computer and whatever else, those are all the same type of word. That's good. So, okay, Debbie said, yeah, the dialogue journal. Yeah, I had gotten away from it. So yeah, we talk about it in tutor training. It is a really nice thing, and you can do it in any way. You can email with the student, you can text with them, you can do an actual physical journal if you're going to see them, which hopefully will happen soon in somewhere in the future. Okay, so I want to say at this point, I definitely have more than what would take us to 3 o'clock. If anyone, even if everyone needs to go, it's okay. If you need to go, I want to show you a couple things with some websites too. But if you do have to go, no problem. I'll try to keep it to 3:15 at the maximum. So yeah, I put this on its own slide because I just can't stress enough that we can't have a story, you know, that we do one day and that's it, and we never talk about it again. I mean, you can, but it's not going to stick with the student unless we spend some time with it, and in interesting ways, in a variety of ways. We don't have to just read the same story Monday and read it again on Wednesday, but we're doing some work with it in multiple lessons. And then, like I said, with cumulative vocabulary reviews, talk about it again 3 months from now. Oh, remember that story we read about this? Bring that vocabulary back into play as much as you can, because again, that might be the only time that they're using these words is with you. I think pretty much what's on this slide, we sort of already talked about. I have some ideas for games, so I'm just going to try to move on and show you some of that. So games, if you have more than one student, I think these are 3 fun activities that I've done with classes or small groups. If you have only one student, I have some examples on the next slide. So I call the first one like $100,000 pyramid, or I guess it was $10,000 pyramid, that TV show from years ago, where someone is describing something and the other person has to guess the word. So you can sort of do a simple version of that where it may be easier if you have a few students who can work together to describe the word, and then one student has to guess. It depends on how much exposure they've had to the words too, and their level. Again, students who are beginners are not going to be able to really do this. They don't have other words yet to describe that word. But, you know, just have, you know, give them a card, or if it's online, maybe you send the word to them in the chat, you know, privately, so other people can't see what the word is, and then the student has to describe it to the other students. You could do something like that, sending it in the chat. Or text it to them, or whatever works. And the idea is they just have to be able to not say the word, but use words to explain that word. That's a great way to review. Another one that I've done so many times is, I just made up a name for it. Honestly, I didn't really have a name for it before. So I have 2 students come up to the board, which was back in the old days. 2 students come up to the board, and I would show them or read to them a sentence with a blank where that vocabulary word should go. Or it might be a definition, a simple definition that we've already studied. They already know it. And they would have to be the first one to write the word. So I would usually give them a list of maybe 8 to 10 words that we were reviewing. We've already looked at these words many times. I would give them the list. Sometimes I would try to do it without a list if it was like the end of the semester and I felt like, okay, we've gone over these words so many times, I'm gonna try and just see what happens. And sometimes it worked. But giving them a list is also good for lower level students. So they don't have to just recall the word, they can choose from what's there. You can have them write in their answers on the chat. You can have them annotate on Zoom and write the answer, although it's probably not going to look very good because it's really hard to write words with your mouse on a computer. Another one, just acting things out. So, you know, maybe you give your students 5 words to review, 5 words that you've had in previous lessons, and they have to come up with a dialogue that uses those words. I mean, hopefully you kind of group them in a way where it makes sense to use those 5 words together, like they're all medical, you know, health related words or something like that. And they have to just be able to use it. And then they actually say the dialogue, they perform it. So those are a few that I've done. For one-on-one, you can do like a concentration, you know, where you flip over a picture and you flip over the word. If it matches, you take it out. If it doesn't match, you have to put it back and then keep trying to match. That can be easily done for one-on-one. We're going to look, if we have enough time, we're going to look at a website that has a template for actually making a concentration type game. Also making a story together with your student with a bank of vocabulary words. Maybe you make the story verbally or you write it together. You write one sentence, they write the next sentence. You write half of a sentence and they finish the sentence. You could do something like that one-on-one with the student with words that they've gotten familiar enough with that they can comfortably make sentences. Hangman, which I kind of don't like, just the image of hangman. So there's also a template for something called the melting snowman, which is a little bit, it's hangman basically, but a little bit more pleasant. And you remove parts of the snowman as they are guessing. If they guess the wrong letters, then, you know, the snowman's nose comes off and the snowman's hat comes off and so on. It seems a little childish, but I don't know. It's better than hangman, in my opinion. So there's a template for that. I'll try to show it to you. Okay, so my last thing really is these 3 different websites. I want to pause here and see if anybody has any questions at this point. I'm hoping this is helpful. I know it hasn't been like super interactive with us all talking, but I just wanted to give some ideas. Anybody have any questions? Anything? Okay, I'm not seeing anything come up. Okay, so we'll keep going and we'll try to wrap this up as quickly as we can. So Quizlet, I've probably talked to many tutors about Quizlet, but I'm going to open it up and show you guys. I know what I did. Okay. Just one second here. Anybody familiar with Quizlet already? Michelle said in the chat, Bamboozle has some pre-made vocabulary lessons. Yeah, that's actually what I was going to show from Bamboozle. And you can make your own lessons on Bamboozle as well. I actually haven't done that yet, so I need to play around with that part a little bit more. But okay, let me just get. Okay, I want to make this full screen, but it's being a little bit weird with me. Okay, there we go. So this is Quizlet. It's free. They do have a paid account. You really don't need to get a paid account. You basically, as an instructor, as a tutor, you go on here. I'm going to show you, if I go to create and I create a study set, it's very low prep for you, and it makes a whole bunch of interactive activities for the student. So I'm going to say, okay, my lesson is about hotels, and I'm just making this up. And my first word is, maybe my first word is, I'm drawing a blank here. Concierge is one of my vocabulary words, let's say. Now, this website will give you some definitions. If you want to use those, you can type in your own definition. You can type in an example sentence. Now, again, this would be words that you have already studied, right? So I can choose a photo. The free account will let you choose from 8 photos for whatever word you search for. The paid account lets you choose from many more photos or maybe even unlimited. I don't have a paid account, but mostly you can find what you want. This doesn't have very good definitions, does it? For that word. But okay, so when you create it, you just put, okay, here's my word number 2, here's my word number 3. You can also do it in different languages if you wanted to, or the student can do it. So you can say, here's the word in English, here's the word in French, here's the word in English, here's the word in Japanese. It does give you the options to choose language, as you can see here. Many, many languages to choose from, so many. So you can do that, or the student can do that if they want. So what it looks like when you have one that's actually a functional Quizlet is, oh, I guess I left. That's what I did. I left it. Okay, so this was one I made about the couple wins the lottery. So I put in, I think 6 or 7 words. So right here I have flashcards. Okay. And you can also arrange the flashcards. Let me see, how do you do that? Oh, I think when you create them, you can say if you want the answer to show up first or the definition. Then I can go to my next word, donated. Here's a picture, here's my definition. I just put in definitions manually. So I've got flashcards. Okay, it's also going to give you the learn option over here on the left-hand side. When you click on learn, it gives you like a multiple choice. So you can choose what's the correct answer. Okay, this is for in shock. Okay, sometimes it has funny pictures, sometimes not. Okay, how do I get out of this? Why is it taking up my whole screen? Okay, I'm going to go back to flashcards. No, that's not what I want. Sorry. Okay, you can also do writing, so it'll let you practice spelling the words. It will do a test, which will give multiple choice, true and false, all kinds of things like that. Debbie asked if I'll be sending the text about the couple winning the lottery. Yes, I will send that. I will send that. So we've got written questions here, matching, multiple choice, true, false. So it gives you a bunch of different things for the test. And the last thing on it is, I like this, it's a matching game. And it's actually a game, so it times you. So I have given away for free, donated, and I put them together, they disappear. This one that says OMG, I'm gonna put in shock. So when I put one together with the right one, it disappears, it times you. So it's pretty cool, and it's all free. And all you have to do is put in the words, and then the definitions, you can choose theirs, or you can make your own, or you put in a sample sentence. So that's a pretty cool resource. Bamboozle was one that I was going to show everyone. And what I did was I just typed ESL. And there are a lot of things here. Sometimes it can be better to make your own, especially if, you're working on some specific vocabulary. This is good for just, like here's ESL irregular verbs. What is the past simple of write? Wrote. What is the past simple of win? So you just click and you get the answer. You can, that's pretty much how it works. Let me look at something else here. So we have, let's say, maybe we'll do to be, practice with the verb to be. I blank a student. I am a student. He is the teacher. So that's basically how it works. You can make your own, but as I said, I haven't really ventured into that part yet. I'm going to for sure. But there are a lot of things already on Bamboozle that are cool. Okay, the last thing that I want to show is Flippity. So, okay, let me show you just what the main Flippity page looks like. Some of you might have seen this in the digital tools session with Sarah Cole. Oh, okay. Someone asked, is the teacher the only person who brings up the web page, or is each student pulling up the same web page at the same time? Okay, good question. So it depends on what you're doing with it. So on Quizlet, if I'm using the flashcards with my student, I might just pull it up myself and I might ask them questions, you know, and say, okay, Ibrahim, can you answer this one? And then he tries to answer. I flip the flashcard over. Okay, Cindy, can you answer this one? So I might do that. If it's the matching, you can send the links to your student and they can do it. For you to really see, you know, what the student is doing at the same time they're doing it. I don't know if anyone's tried this, but you can give remote access to your screen, meaning that you press a button and it allows your student to move the mouse around on whatever you have on your screen. So if you had that matching game, for example, and you wanted to share remote access with your screen, then you're the one who pulls it up, you give them remote access and they can play the matching game and you both see it on the screen. Now, if you have a bunch of students, then it's a little harder. I mean, you can do it, but it's gonna really take up a lot of time to give everybody individual control of the screen. That could really kind of suck up a lot of time. But for one-on-one, you can easily do that. And you can also send it to them. You can also on Quizlet create a class and add people with their email addresses to that class, which means anything you create, they will see it. Whereas if you just send them a link and say, here's this Quizlet I made, then they just see that one. But if you add them to a class, then they see every Quizlet that you make for that class. So, so that's a cool thing. So this is what Flippity looks like, where you look on the main page and there are many options. What I have used mostly so far is the manipulatives. But if we just take a look, things that are probably helpful, Flippity flashcards, the manipulatives, I'll show you, the matching game like concentration. I mean, any of these, I'm sure you could find a way to use. Flippity word search, crossword puzzle. There's the snowman one, which I'll try to show you if I can. You know, Mad Libs. I think this website is a little bit, it's not super user friendly. It gives you instructions, but there's just a lot of different rules for all of these different activities. So that's partly why I've kind of stuck with one, to be honest, so far. So when you click on Flippity manipulatives and if you want to read how to do it, you read the instructions. If you're ready to do it, you go to the template, which will ask you if you want to make a copy, and you do. And then I have one I've already done, so I'm just going to show you that, but just so you kind of see the process. It's going to automatically give you this. These are actually characters from the TV show The Office. I don't know how many people recognize that right away, but this is like in the template and you just write over them. I guess they're just giving you an example of what you could put in. So you just type in, oh, okay, concierge or whatever for my hotel lesson. So you just type in whatever you want. I think that you need to delete the ones that you don't, like if you only have 5 words, you might just go in and delete these, which is a little bit annoying, but it's not a big deal. So once you do that and you're ready, you have to press File and Publish to the web. And then you say Publish. Again, this is one of those things, you can go back and watch this part again if you want to see how to do it or read the instructions or just email me, either way, because there's a lot of steps. It's not hard, but there's a lot of steps. So now I have to copy this link. Okay, I'm gonna go over here and paste that link. Now I know there's another step. It says get the link here. You're not really doing anything except just clicking on these things. So now here's the link, and when I click on it, it has this, which it has the word concierge that I put in there, but all of these other names are there. So this is obviously not very useful, but just to show you what you have to click on, the one that I made is, where did it go? This. So I put some sentences here, and then I have the words, and I can just line them up. So an extravagant vacation, donated, she donated, in shock, she was in shock. So you can, again, give your student control of the screen, student or students. If you have just one or two, it's not hard to do that with them, and just give them each a turn to move the words over. Another thing you can do is make in each part of the spreadsheet, each cell, going down is an individual word. And then you have them put the sentence together. So they pull each word over. Again, that's not exactly about vocabulary, but it's a cool feature, I think. You can even do it like breaking the words into syllables, and then maybe you show them and you pull the next syllable, right? And the next syllable, and this is how we pronounce the word. So I think it's a really neat visual and interactive kind of thing, for being remote. It's a nice thing, I think. So that's what Flippity is. And there's a lot more to it. I haven't even explored all of it myself yet. The manipulatives is the main one that I've used. So that's about it, I think. But let me head back over to, let's see, head back over to the PowerPoint and okay, this is being kind of weird. Hopefully you'll see the PowerPoint again. Let's see, we were on this page. Is everyone seeing that again? The boxes with Quizlet, Bamboozle? Yes, okay, good.
Trisha, is it flippity.com or flippity.net?
Oh, it probably is. I probably put it incorrectly. I think it is net. You're right. It's flippity.net. And I'll send something out. I'll send something out to people with the websites and everything, and the story about the couple who won the lottery and so on. Yeah. Okay. So let's see. So that's pretty much it. I just put here, for more help with digital stuff, Sarah Cole, if you haven't attended any of her sessions yet, she's really great. And she can help you, one-on-one if needed, or, she does sessions often on different online resources. Christina Indovina is our new learning specialist. She's doing both ESL, Adult Basic Education, GED. So, you can also reach out to her for more help with resources, working on vocabulary or anything. And you can also, of course, contact me if you have questions. I'll send the PowerPoint out as well when I email people. If you don't mind, I'm sure we're going to be able to see a list of names of who has joined this meeting so that I can get everyone's names. Oh, Christina, sorry. Christina said that, the best email to contact Christina, the specialist, is specialist@literacypittsburgh.org. So that's a better one to contact her. Great. So I'm writing down people's names who I see here before we head out, and I can find everyone's emails. Don't worry about giving me your email. If I have your name, then your email is in our system. I might have missed some people if they had to leave. Maybe they wrote something in the chat, so I'll try to grab that. But
Trisha, it's Sandra. I actually created a spreadsheet for you.
Oh.
I missed a couple though, so you might want to go back to your original.
Wow. Thank you. That's amazing. Okay. Well, thank you, Sandra. So Sandra made a list of everybody.
You're welcome.
That is amazing. Thank you. So yeah, I think that's it. Does anyone have any questions? Or did we go back to our first slide here? Sorry to make everybody dizzy going all the way back, but just to see if we covered things. We talked about when words may be new for a student.
Trisha, do you mind if I say just a couple of things? This is Christina.
Yeah, please do.
Hey, everybody. One of the things that Trisha covered here is an awesome resource that I've used before, and those are the leveled readers, those Bookworm and Pearson series. I am just gonna give y'all, I've been in the job now about 2 months, and I will tell you, because I can find it online does not always mean that it's available for purchase and or order. So if you find some of those and you really get excited by some, if you could either maybe give me like 3 options that would make you happy, because I've had several tutors who find like a very specific book, they pump it up with their student, and then I contact the publisher and they say, oh, that's been out of print for 2 years, or we can't get that in the United States, or those are only for sale in Japan, which are all responses that I've gotten. So, but these are great series, and I am actually working to try to maybe get a couple of these to just have on hand in the office, like some kind of beginner, intermediate, and advanced, because I'm a big proponent of sustained reading for students at pretty much every level. That is, you know, for good or for bad, that's one of the ways that we all improve our vocabulary. So I think that was it. Everything else, Trisha, great job. I enjoyed all of this. So
thank you. So I guess we can wrap it up unless anyone has any final questions, anything that didn't get addressed. Let me just see if there's anything else in the chat that I might have missed. Okay. Bamboozle, dialogue journal. Yeah, okay. I think we got it. So yeah, I guess I'll stop here. I hope this is helpful for everyone. We'll put the recording up. It has to do some processing thing on Zoom after we get done with the meeting, and then we'll put it up on our YouTube channel. That might take a little bit more time, but I'll try to send everybody, you know, the PowerPoint and other things that we looked at sooner. And then once the recording is available, I'll let you know, or you can also check on the Literacy Pittsburgh YouTube channel. Okay.
Thank you.
So yeah, thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Have a good,
Thank
have
you,
a good
Trisha.
day, and we'll
Thank you.
we'll
Have a good
hopefully-
day.
Thanks. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Let me see here.